I'm not much of a romance reader. I'm not gonna lie. I rolled my eyes a little bit when this book came up for book club. I was like, oh no, romance. But I did get through it, and I
Yeah.
found myself actually really enjoying it. It was kind of fun to read, and so I'm really glad I got to give it a chance. I enjoyed it.
Hi, everyone. This was a great book, by the way. And Tiara, thank you so much for putting this together. Like, I was just like, oh, this is great. We get to meet the author. This is my first romance novel. I usually do not go for romance at all, but it was a good read. I felt like I could relate to her as far as feeling if you were deserving of love, especially after a breakup. And there was so many that I was like, yes, girl. And it's not what I thought a romance novel would have been like a cheesy guy on a horse talking about like, come and love me as I grab you. I don't know if I can deal with that kind of book.
Welcome everyone to the Melanated Book Club meetup and also the author talk where we will discuss Beale Street Blues by Angela K. Austin. She is joining us. She is joining us today. Angela, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be here with us and discuss your book. But before we jump into discussing the book, I wanted to see if you could tell us a little bit about yourself. So who is Angela K. Austin?
Hey, well, I thank you all. For those of you who have not read the book, I hope this discussion will make you read it. But I am by trade a marketer and a professor. And writing is something that my undergraduate degree was in communications, and so radio, television, film. So I actually started out this whole life in theater, as oddly as it may sound. And throughout the course of so many different things, I've just returned to a original love of mine, which was to write. And so I've been writing now for about 12 years. The last 5 years or so, I've been doing that as an independently or self-published author, which means that not only am I writing it, but I'm handling the business behind the writing as well. Angela Kay is a Southern author by trade who loves to travel, drink great wine, and eat delicious food. That's one.
Awesome. So Angela, where are you from?
I'm originally from Memphis, Tennessee.
Cool, which is where the book is, where the setting of the book is located, Memphis.
Exactly, yeah.
So Angela, outside of writing books, have you ventured into any other like formats of writing?
Originally, I think like so many people who write, I did a lot of poetry. And I have a really good friend who is a screenwriter by trade as well as an author. And so I've been really trying to work the idea of one of my books into a screenplay. I would love to see it. As I said, I started this whole thing in theater. I would love to see it on a stage. That's been harder than I thought it would be to really try to make that happen. But I would love to see that actually come to fruition.
Very cool. So Angela, what was the first book you wrote and why? And what was the inspiration behind your first book? What made you leap into writing a book after being in theater?
One of the things that I've always loved about theater is I love kind of like that instant connection and feedback that you get when you're like on stage, and it's just a buzz. I don't know. I don't know, like, if you guys have anything that you do that allows you to create. I don't care what it is, but whatever it is, when you're engaging with other people and you're creating it, it's just, you get a buzz and you love it. And so I was acting, doing extra work, all kinds of other things, but it was not a life that was something that I was like making a crap ton of money at. It wasn't working. I wasn't. So it was like being able to do something that I love, which is writing, allowed me to still have that opportunity to express myself, create, pull people into a world that, I don't know, that you hope that once they're in that world, they almost feel like they know the people. and they're like rooting for certain things to happen. Maybe they get mad at you because you didn't do it the way that they wanted to do it, you know, because they would have done this and you're like, you didn't do that. So you just want to, it's fun. It's like there's a vibe and an energy, and I love doing it. It's I don't know, I can't, you know, can't really explain it, but it's something that gives me a tremendous amount of just excitement and joy, a lot of pleasure.
Did you, I just have a question. I've always wondered, as a writer, did you have trouble coming up with ideas at first on what to write about or how to write it?
I had trouble with length because I started out doing poetry. So I was really comfortable doing short pieces. And to be honest, it was like you were putting in a lot of filler because, you know, when I first started this 12 years ago, the shortest work that most publishing houses would take was like 50 to 60,000 words. So if you come from this world of writing poetry and now you've got to extend something 50,000 words, 60,000 words before an acquisitions editor would even consider it, it was like, how do I make that happen? You know, that was the hardest thing. So I don't know if it was like a lack of ideas or more so what people call that sagging. You ever heard that term before where like your story starts to kind of like have this sag? And it's because you don't know what to do at that part of the story. And you're just like tossing things in. You're just putting whatever you can put in there because you're trying to get to that 50 or 60,000 words. So for me, I guess it was really more about the length than the story. And I don't know, there were some stories I felt like I wasn't ready to tell at certain times. And so they sat on my computer until I was ready to tell them. The book that you guys read was set in Memphis, but there's a historical series that I've been doing for years. It took me about 2 years of research before I ever wrote the first book. And now I'm 2 books in and I have 2 more to go, but I stall on it because there's so much research that goes into it. And since it's a historical fiction, even though it's about vampires, I at least want the historical part to be right. Because I don't want people to be like, that didn't happen. Of course it didn't happen. I have vampires fighting in the Civil War. None of it happened. But I don't want people to get me on the whole lack of accuracy thing, right? So yeah, it's more about just the overall kind of that part of it, but not the ideas themselves.
Any other ladies have questions before we start diving into the book?
I guess I do. I was wondering for like just the writing process and getting like published. What was, I guess, the most difficult and most challenging thing that you faced? Maybe just like you as a person, like as a person, but then also as like an African American woman, kind of pursuing this like process. And I think there's just like maybe a lack of representation and just kind of like maybe some of the challenges that most people or most authors kind of face. Kind of do through this entire process of like, you know, starting their book and then also trying to get published and getting the advertisement and the marketing out.
Yeah, well, that's a good question. The loaded one. It's like I can answer that so many ways. So I have a YouTube channel. You guys can see my little note there that says hit subscribe. And it's really all about diverse voices because when I started in this, one of the issues that I had was that I was trying to find an acquisitions agent or editor, trying to find an agent, trying to find a publishing house that was looking for stories that I wanted to tell without changing my voice so that it would be something that they were more comfortable with publishing. So there are a couple of different publishers that I reached out to. I had one that I really wanted. They had an imprint that catered towards African-American women's fiction and romance. Now, since that time, that imprint and so many other imprints that focus on African-American romance have now shuttered, they're closed. So it's a really tricky situation because most of the major publishers had specific imprints or, and you guys know what I mean when I say imprints, right? They had specific lines of books that were catered to African-American stories, right? So that was really kind of where everybody was shelved. And so that's what I was going after. And I would reach out, I would go to different conferences, speak with different acquisitions teams. And from one team to the next, they would say that they didn't know how to market a book that was an African American romance, that was focused on an African American female reader. And so from one to the next, I kind of kept hearing that. And it just kind of kept pushing you to where, for me, that ended up putting me with what we call digital publishing houses. So they're smaller presses, but they have more of a variety of voices. But that being said, that means they don't have marketing dollars and all kinds of other things behind them. So when you're with one of those houses, that means that you have to do a lot of the work yourself, which eventually is what led me to the whole decision to become, although some of my books are still with one of my I've had 3 publishers over the last 12 years. And so I've taken all my books back from everyone except for one who still has about 5 of my pieces. But basically, I mean, all of those things are the reasons why now I primarily self-publish, because they don't have the ability to do kind of any more than I can do. So it's like why I share my money with them. I don't know. So yeah, it's a tricky road as a person of color writing.
I have a question. Have you had any kind of mentors to help you along the way, or any kind of other Black female writers that have inspired you on your journey?
Yeah, and I actually, well, she's not a mentor, but I'm going to call her my best friend. She doesn't know it yet. But Beverly Jenkins was, I actually had the privilege to interview her on my YouTube channel. She's someone who really inspired me as a writer. I don't know if you guys have ever read any of her work, but she was one of the first African-American female romance writers. So she's been writing for about 30 years. And her work has this blend of history and entertainment. And I love her writing, I love her stories. And of course, we all know the greats. But as a person who was writing in a kind of small press world, I bumped into a lot of people along the way who taught me different things. So I would have, through membership in organizations like Romance Writers of America and all these other little organizations that are out there, I met a lot of people who would sit me down and say, hey, Angela, this is what you should do with cover art. This is what you should do with editing. This is what you should do with distribution. So I've had a lot of women along the way who touched my life as far as the business behind books. But when it comes to just people who I love, whose writing has inspired me, those would probably be any of the greats that we've all read. But I just had the privilege of being able to actually meet Beverly Jenkins and to interview her and to just really kind of like, just have that fantastic moment in my own life.
Nice. So Angela, let's jump into the book. I want to start off with setting. How did you choose to place this book specifically in Memphis, Tennessee? I know you said you're from there, but this is also not your first book, right? So.
No, yeah, you did ask me that. Did I forget to answer that? So my first book was the first book that I wrote was a book called Give Me Everything. It was not the first book published, but it is published, but it was not the first one published. The first one published was a book called Love's Chance. But I kind of set my stories in places that I'm familiar with for whatever the reason. Either I've lived there, I've worked there, I have friends or family who are there. So Beale Street Blues was an easy one because in my lifetime, I've been laid off 3 times. And so it was a very easy book to connect with the character. So I literally was in Memphis one day and I was walking around downtown and literally I walked into the Peabody. And it's, I don't know if any of you guys have been to Memphis, but I walked into the Peabody Hotel. And the lobby of the Peabody, they shoot it. It's in a lot of movies. It's kind of like this grand thing. and you walk into this lobby and it's just gorgeous. And it's just ridiculously, insanely expensive for anything. And I'm like, how does a regular Memphian afford to hang out here? But it was crazy. It was crowded. It was insane. It was loud. People were having a ball. It was, and it just, I don't know, it just made me start to think about all the people. If you ever go to Beale Street in Memphis, you have people under certain ages can't get into certain places, can't do certain things. And so it just started to make me think about all these different pieces of the people who are allowed and are permitted, who do have the money, and the people who don't, and how that all kind of come to a weird little kind of meeting point, So it was literally, I just walked into the Peabody and the idea hit me.
Cool. So when we start looking at the two lead characters, Darling and Jackson, how did they come to be? Like, how did you think of Darling? Is she like I don't know, an extension of you, or is this someone that you've like seen in a movie and you thought that, oh yeah, I can identify with that person, or is she like your alter ego or something? Like, how did you come up with Darling's character, type of personality, and the same thing with Jackson? How'd they come to be?
So being from Memphis, I love to play with religion, race, food, family. I pretty much always put those things into my book. And so when it came to Darling, I don't know, for some reason with this book, I played with the names of my women characters a lot. Barbara, Barbie, Darling, these are, it's kind of almost like, I don't know if you guys picked up on it, but it was almost kind of like a little bit of a woman empowerment. Like if somebody has the name Darling, do people take her seriously? If I say to you, hey, I'm Darling, what are you going to say back? I mean, would you take me seriously? Would you think I knew how to do anything? But yet, Darling was incredibly intelligent, and she was always, they had her working on all these things. And, she was a woman who really knew, a lot. She just lost so much that she kind of lost her way a little bit. She wasn't so sure of herself, but she was incredibly intelligent. But with the name Darling, we wouldn't really think she was, you're like, why did your mother name you Darling? But so I love playing with that name and just kind of creating the character behind that, the person that people may not expect to be able to do certain things, but she was very able to do it. As far as like an extension of me, I don't know, I guess maybe in the fact that, I've never been married, I've never been divorced, quit a lot of jobs, but I think she was just like, nothing more than an amalgamation of just a lot of different things that I've seen a lot of different women have to go through. It's like, because I write in the women's fiction space, I love to write stories about women who, if they have fallen down and they've lost their faith in themselves, I like to kind of show them regaining their strength and their power and getting back up and succeeding.
And then what about Pasty Jackson?
Oh, I forgot about Jackson. So you guys ever watch this show called Sons of Anarchy?
Oh my God, yes. I'm like watching it now. So good.
I totally stole the name Jackson from the lead character in that show, right? But other than that, I based him on like a little bit of, I don't know, Matthew McConaughey, a little bit of every white guy I've ever seen in Memphis and downtown. I don't know. I just, there's like, especially like, right now, if you think about the world today, there's just so much division and so much whatever that, in my books, I like to face those things and push people in directions to where they just may not have thought about certain things before. And so it was just a fun play on a couple of different things like that. But I know no one liked him at all.
So was
So
Jack?
you never, oh, I was about to say, so you never had a Jackson in your life. You never came across a Jackson.
Now, I've never had some Pierres. I don't know, some Romeos. I don't know. I've never had a Jackson, though. I've never had a Jackson. I'll keep my eyes open.
Okay.
So Angela, then this was an interracial couple. I don't remember. Okay, I was going to say I don't remember in the book it stating whether Jackson was white or if he was black or if he wasn't.
Yeah.
So okay, so it didn't. Okay, I thought maybe I had missed something, but I never knew. Like, okay, this is an interracial couple. I just figured this is a
Yeah, I do it. I tend to, sometimes I am very direct, but sometimes I do, I don't, sometimes I do what a lot of writers will call a mirror. So where it's like, oh, his eyes were green and his hair was blonde and what. I don't really do those too often. I try not to. Sometimes I do just to cement it in a reader's mind when they first pick up the book. But usually I'll do it in more subtle ways. But yeah, if you go back, flip a couple pages, you'll see. I think Jackson had like green eyes and salt and pepper hair, and yeah.
I remember eyes, but I don't remember a hair color. So then I just figured this was a, I don't know. In my mind, I painted a picture of like a Morris chestnut, but with like Michael Ealy's eyes. So I didn't think at
I
all.
love it. That's good.
Yeah.
You should see him exactly how you choose to see him, which is really one reason why I do try to be a little phantom sometimes, because people have different ideas of beauty. And if you get very, very specific in things, then sometimes it takes people out of the story, unless the physicality in some way, unless that is a part of your story. So if there's something like if my characters are an interable couple, or if there's something going on, but otherwise I want people to see beauty or masculinity, or I want them to see it the way that they see it. So I may push you in a certain direction, but then I let you kind of walk in your own, go wherever you want to go. And mostly people tell me they picture Rick Fox.
Oh,
That's what most people tell me.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Barbara in this story seems to have her character is also very built up, and the people within the office are all also very built up. And I'm wondering why you chose to give her so much light in the book, and also explain a little bit how you had Barbara come to be. She's pretty much the shit starter of the office, and if she doesn't get what she wants, then she's a person kind of to be reckoned with if you don't want all your business out in the streets. So how did that kind of be?
Now, Barbie, I will admit, I may have loosely based her on a few people I know, but but I don't know. I just think I feel like no matter where you work, I really don't. I feel like there's always that one person that people kind of side eye, like if they walk by, you stop talking, you whatever, because that there's that one somebody. But I also wanted to challenge us, because we always look for a bad guy, right? I mean, like every story has to have a bad guy, So Barbie was a challenge for me, because I built her up intentionally, because I've been working an idea about Barbie ever since I wrote the book. But she was the same thing, because her name is Barbara, but people call her Barbie, and she's kind of like this fuller figured woman who people don't take seriously. And she's kind of gotten away with things because she found that she fell into a zone and people accepted her in that zone, and she got what she wanted. So she didn't have to be anything more, and, she played to what she allowed people to tell her strengths were, even though she was the same. She was an intelligent woman. She could do, she knew she had a mind that she could use, but she tossed it away and went for the easier route, And so I wanted people, when people met Barbie, I wanted them to try to figure out, like, what was Barbie going to do? How was she going to play into the story? What was she going to, could she change? Could she become somebody different? You know, I mean, I don't know. I like Barbie, but I did base her on a few people that I've known across my
I actually like to hop in and ask a question. So obviously, Beale Street Blues, having lived in Memphis for a couple of years, the South in general, just kind of ties to the musicality there. Like, you know, we see how Darlie and Jackson met. You know, they were dancing and they had
life.
one night stand. You know,
Yeah.
so you know, having read some of your other works and also some of the other authors you spoke about that have the same kind of similar ties to music, just kind of wondering, like, where does that stem from? Do you just have an affinity for music, or do you have a personal background in that?
Yeah, you know, I didn't realize so much so that that's another thing. I have another book called Melody that is, if you guys ever read that, it's got a lot of stuff about BB King in it. Like the characters and name, like one of them has BB King's last name, one has his first name, they're from his hometown, you know, like his mother's name is one of the characters. I didn't realize that I was doing that so much, you know, but Memphis is music and food, you know. And when you go down to Beale Street, literally as you walk down Beale Street, there's music coming out of every other building, you know. And so for them to meet on Beale Street and just, I had to incorporate music into that whole, I felt like, into that whole incident, because I don't think it would have been true storytelling about Memphis and about Beale Street without incorporating that. And I think that, you know, for me, you know, I should say I used to. I played clarinet and saxophone for 20 years. And if anybody who loves music, you know how like music can make you really kind of forget yourself. And Darling was going through so much when that book opened, you know, so to just be, you know, to be in that place, listening to that music, almost allowing it to become like a meditation, like meditative for her, because she closed her eyes and she forgot about everything around her. Everything that was going on, she just let it all go. And she just like went out on the dance floor. Have any of you guys ever done that? Where you just be like, I'm just gonna go out here, that's my spot. I don't care who's watching, I don't care what they think or what they say. I'm just gonna stand right here and I'm gonna twirl around in circles, you know? And that's what I wanted. I wanted her to just
Or
be
like work around in circles. That's true, yeah.
yeah, you know, I wanted her to just be I wanted her to be free. You know, I wanted her to have a moment where she forgot about the fact that she was divorcing, and she forgot about the fact that, you know, she's living with her parents, and she forgot about the fact that she didn't have a job and she couldn't afford a $15 glass of wine. I wanted her to forget about everything and just, you know, have a moment of just peace, a moment of calm, you know? It's like, and I just thought it was a cool way to have them meet each other. She was at this, you know, at this super moment of freedom. And then this like super hot, you know, guy just walks up on her. So that's where the romance, that's where the fantasy comes in. That's not, you know, I don't know. Maybe that's happened to one of you ladies. It's never happened to me. But that's where the fantasy comes in, where like super hot, wealthy guy who owns companies just happens to be there, rolls up on you and says, hey, I don't know. It's never happened to me, but it happened to Darling. So I thought it was cool to write that.
We can all, yeah, we can all pray for that.
Right? We can see, you know, hey, keep hope alive. I'm still hoping.
Bree, did you have more questions?
I have an affinity for music as well, and you know, having read obviously Title and wanting to pick up books, you know, and having lived in Memphis and understanding the reference point, you know, and even when she, you know, when Angela mentioned in Melody, having read that, you know, work as well, yeah, Beale Street Blues, melodies or other words. For me, it's like the music ties people together, ties readers together. It's something that we all can identify with and resonate with. And so, picking up on those notes, no pun intended, in reading Beale Street Blues and some of other, other works by Angela, but I'm just curious, kind of where did that stem from? But yeah, we can press on.
No, I do. I think that, there are so many things that connect us, and, Bria knows this, I do travel a lot, and I find like music and food, these are things that connect us across so many things, culture, races, and religions. And I just, I don't know. I wanted to show them connecting before they ever knew anything about themselves, but they were just like both in a zone and in a moment. I think sometimes, we shoot ourselves in the foot, if we just, didn't speak and just took time to just engage in other ways, who knows what we could come across. So I have a question for you guys. Do you guys normally read romance? What do you guys think about romance books in general?
I would say for myself, I'm not a romance novel reader, but I wanted to read this book because Bria told me it was one of her favorites, and she was actually wanting to read again. And I'm like, okay, well, let's get into it. And actually, when I started reading it, I read it literally in like 2 or 3 days. So I loved it because it was like easy to follow along with, but like you could also relate to Darling and like the struggle she was going through, and then also like kind of finding a new boo, but not knowing if you actually want to give it a try because all these other things you still have going on. So I would say this is my first probably like romance novel that I've like picked up and read all the way through.
Well, I'm gonna take that as a thank you, and you are welcome. Welcome to the genre. Okay. Well, what do you ladies think about romance? It's so hard when I talk to people about romance, because so many people kind of see it as like, like romance, right? But I don't think anything's wrong with romance. I just, I love to write it. I write women's fiction and romance, but I like giving what I call like, like regular women a voice. We all know people who've been laid off in this world today, right? We all know people who have been divorced and who are going through these different things. So I want to show those people having the opportunity to start again or start over. And, so, I mean, it's always so interesting. What about you other ladies? Were you going to say something, Gina?
Yeah, I'm not much of a romance reader. I'm not going to lie. I rolled my eyes a little bit when this book came up for book club. I was like, oh no, romance. But I did get through it, and I tend to read a lot of kind of heavier books, like some like sci-fi, and I found myself actually really enjoying it. It was kind of fun to read, and so I'm really glad I got to give it a chance. I've actually never been to Memphis, so I think some of your place and like the sense of place in the book was really great as well. So, but yeah, I would give it a shot again. It definitely was a fun read for me. I enjoyed it.
Hi, everyone. This was a great book, by the way. And Tiara, thank you so much for putting this together. Like, I was just like, oh, this is great. We get to meet the author. Again, it was a great book. This is my first romance novel. I usually do not go for romance at all. I'm more of a murder mystery, like who killed you kind of thing, but it was a good read. I felt like I could relate to her as far as feeling if you were deserving of love, especially after a breakup. And there was so many that I was like, yes, girl. And I'm in a relationship now, so like her, I started feeling worthy, but it's not what I thought a romance novel would have been like a cheesy guy on a horse talking about like, come and love me as I grab you. I don't know if I can deal with that kind of book. This definitely was more developed, by far less cheesy. I didn't feel embarrassed reading it in public, so great book. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Steph. Angela, I have another question for you, and it has to do with the ending of the book and how you chose to end it. It's very happy ever after-ish. So why did you choose to go this route versus another route?
Because of the romance genre. So if it were one of the books that I was really writing squarely in women's fiction, it would have had a different ending. But I kind of thought that Darlene, I don't know, I wanted her to, when the book opens, she's not necessarily happy. She's existing, you know? And so I kind of thought it would be a good place for that character, is that you got to see that she was getting back, you know, a full kind of 360 healthy life. You know, the divorce wasn't holding her down anymore. She was no longer afraid to not only just like love, but to be loved. And she, you know, wasn't feeling like people were just going to use her or kind of throw her away. You know, she'd come to like this whole new kind of place. And like I said, because it's romance, they don't necessarily like you very much if you don't give them a happily ever after. And they would say lots of mean things about you. They've said it about me. It's like, so you don't want them to say mean things about you. So I enjoyed bringing her back around 360.
And I'm actually just, more so curious to know, like, having read some of your other work, like, you tend to err on the side of this, as Sierra would say, happily ever after-ish. And why, is it just the genre, or is it something kind of within you that's like, I don't want to see this kind of tied up in a pretty little bow?
Well, I guess if you put it like that, then, it might be kind of like a combination. So the genre of romance, people want to see a happily ever after. It would not be traditional romance if you didn't end it with an HEA. So what Tierra is saying, happily ever after-ish, is what we call happily for now, HFN. So I tend, because I straddle a line between women's fiction and romance, I tend to be closer to the HFN versus the HEA. But I don't know, Bria, it's, I like to see good people win, and I like to see bad people lose. I don't know. So I don't think I would be happy if I wrote a book and good people lost. So yeah, it's probably I probably wouldn't even write women's fiction and romance if I didn't want to see a happily ever after-ish type of ending. I'd probably be writing in an entirely different genre, to be honest.
Or it could serve as a wonderful cliffhanger for a next installment.
Oh no, I wrote a book called The Hidden Heir, and it has a cliffhanger. I don't think I've ever been more attacked by readers in my life. I don't know if I'm the cliffhanger person. They're like, what is this? Where's the rest of this book? No. I don't know about that.
I enjoyed a happy ever after. I think I needed it, especially now, because I don't feel like we live in a happy ever after. We're in a weird, whoever's writing the book for 2020 should stop now. Like, they need your ending, because I've had enough. And so this was just refreshing, because like I could definitely understand as far as like where she was in life, and then seeing someone that she was with giving everything that she asked for and everything that she built to someone else. It really hit me when she said, you want to give away this house, but you didn't even want to come house hunting. And I'm like, yes, like, iron your clothes, and now this is what you do. So it's good to see the life after, and maybe because I have the life after now, it's like, it does get better, and that's how I'm looking at 2020. Like, I hope it does get better. Queen and Slim, I don't know if everyone saw it, and if they did, a little spoiler alert. I didn't like the ending and I left very upset because right now with everything that's going on, I didn't need somebody else to kick me while I'm down, and 2020 has me down. So your book is refreshing in a sense because you kind of get to live in another world and see that it can be better. It's like Disney for adults, but
Yeah.
better. Yeah.
I haven't watched Queen and Slim yet, but that's one of the things that I wanted. I wanted people to see a little bit of themselves in it, but I also wanted people to, like I say, see somebody win. I mean, we watch all kinds of movies, read all kinds of books, and so if you want to, read something or watch something that's a drama, you read it, you watch it because that's what you want. But when you pick up a romance book or a women's fiction book, it's going to have this woman it's focusing on, but you're hoping that the woman is going to come out some sort of, like with a W. I don't want to see her lose. And, for people who have ever been in a relationship where they really did put their all into it, I've been in one. Sounds like you've been in one. All of us have been in one, and when you put your whole everything into something, and then, it ends, and then you look at that person, and whether they are or are not, but they're giving what you wanted to someone else, then you feel even more like, why? And that's what I put into Darling. It's like she was giving her whole and everything, and, it just hit her. It's just like she wasn't good enough. It wasn't, and she started to judge other people, like, will I be good enough with, you know what I mean? And we all do it, whether we admit to it or not. Am I young enough? Am I cute enough? My hair long enough? Am I size 2 enough? We always throw the word enough on everything. And I just wanted to put all of that in there and just, I don't know. I think we all deserve to be happy. And I liked writing that and showing her that she could have another chance at having another awesome love opportunity. So
I love that. I'm kind of glad it was.
Yeah, and that was actually, I made a note on that on chapter 11. I was trying to find it. But she said they came from 2 different worlds, just like her and her ex. And I did that a while. And I had to realize that I have to kind of clean slate it and give that new person a fair chance because they weren't the ones that hurt me. And that was the only way. So I could definitely, I was like, yeah, girl, that's probably that. But it was definitely like super refreshing. I'm a fan. So I see why Bray read it 3 times.
I appreciate that. It's like the, and I love the fact that you pointed out, kind of that section, but that's the thing, I think when I wrote it from such a Memphis perspective that, I know some parts of it were hard for people to connect, because people don't know the FedEx airport here is like a thing in Memphis where couples literally, they will go out and sit and, I mean, all these things that I put into this book are things that Memphians would look at and be like, yeah, but I wanted other people outside of Memphis to be pulled into Memphis. And then, also not only fall in love with the characters, but fall in love with the different parts of Memphis. That was kind of like the 3rd or 4th character of the book, really, because everything was just, I really tried to amp it up. But I love the fact that, you saw something there that you were building yourself, because I just think that we all have baggage, right? I guess some very enlightened people, maybe some of you guys are so enlightened and you guys have no baggage and you're amazing people and you guys can help me get to that point and I'll be just as enlightened as the rest of you. But until that point, I got all kinds of baggage, like big, huge, bulky, heavy baggage. And it slows you down and it stops you from being able to find that next person to share your life with, because you keep comparing them or expecting or waiting for them to do something that the other people in the past did. And if they do it, it's probably like, what do they call it when you when you make it happen.
Yeah.
Manifesting,
Yeah.
So, and I just wanted to show her dealing with all of that, and it's because I just think it's normal. It's something that we all do.
I agree. So Angela, we are running out of
I
time.
have a question. I don't have mute on because, girl, I'm still in my work clothes. But I wanted to say thank you so much for sharing. I have never sat in this genre before with you guys. I'll get it. Now that I hear you guys preamble, I really like romance novels. I love happy endings, so I will be reading your book.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much. A great audience. Thank you guys for sharing your stories. I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate this. I've never joined this before, so I will continue to do so. I'm glad I chimed in.
Awesome. So Angela, we are getting toward the end, but before we get off, I want to make sure that we find out what your next piece of work is. So are you currently working on something? And where can we find it, or when can we find it if you're still working on it? And then I also wanted to see if you could give any of our potential writers that are on the line encouraging words for writing their first piece, or anything that you have that's encouraging for a new writer or someone who has been writing for a while but has been kind of afraid to put their first piece out there.
Oh, wow. So right now I'm working on a piece called Broken Road. And Bria there is actually beta reading it for me. So if you guys don't like it, blame Bria. No, but I'm working.
Get it over to me tonight, literally 2 hours before this call. I haven't started it yet. I'm sure it's going to be an amazing piece of work, just like all of her work.
Yeah, I hope so. I love that piece. I do really love that story a lot, and it's more of a second chance type of romance story. For those who do read romance, that's kind of where it would fit, but it's got a lot of other elements to it, and I really love it. It's something that I hope people will really like when they see it. It should be out sometime around September once it's all finished. Anything else, like I say, everything that I've written, you can find it on my website at Angela K. Austin, and you can also follow my YouTube channel, Angela K. Austin, to learn more about it as well. As far as people who want to be writers, who all wants to be a writer on here? I'm on my phone now because for some reason my computer kept dropping you guys. Who wants to be a writer? Just keep your hand up so I can flip through screens and see. Anybody want to write?
I don't necessarily write a book, Angela, but I write often. And so sometimes I think of publishing a memoir later on in life of all these things that I've written over the years. I don't know if that falls into the same,
Yeah. I mean, regardless of what you want to write, if you do want to write, I would say you do have to make that decision of whether or not you want to self-publish or go mainstream, because that's going to determine every other step that you want to do. Because most people who do mainstream, one of the quickest ways is to attend, or used to be, to attend conferences and events in order to create relationships. That's how I got the offer to submit to Kensington, going to an event, meeting an editor, and she was like, I want to see your stuff, so send it to me. And so that's gonna pick your lane and what you do. And if you do want to write a memoir, and if you do want to go mainstream, then you're gonna have to find that house. So whatever you guys do, however you want to write, you're going to have to pick your lane, find the publisher that you want to be partnered with to put your work out there. And basically, you've got to stalk them. You got to know who they're publishing. You've got to know what their acquisitions look like. You've got to, make sure that your product fits with their house so that they will actually consider it. Do they take agented or unagented work? All of these different things, right? But if you self-publish, then you're going to have to be ready to put on your marketing hat so that you know how to define your audience and where they are. Like, for instance, I can't see the name, the lady who just asked about Audible, I can't make out the name, but so I have some books that are in Audible and some that are not. So
sorry. It's Michelle.
Okay. Michelle. So like as a self-published author, you know, you have to make that decision. Is my readership inaudible or are they not inaudible? So if you're going to make the self-published journey, then you have to figure out where your reader is. You have to figure all of that out yourself and make sure that you're pushing out the product and hitting the people where getting what they can from you. So I just think it depends. But on my YouTube channel, I do interview, like I just recently interviewed a literary agent, and I have some other interviews coming up with some acquisitions editors. So I would really say, you know, find a source that you trust so that you can get the information that you need to be able to take the steps that you want to take.
Awesome. Well, Angela, thanks so much for being here. Thank you for taking your time to talk to us about Beale Street Blues. Ladies,
Definitely.
Friends to read this and follow Angela on all her social media.
Yes, thank you.
I would definitely say thank you guys for having me here with you. It was such a pleasure. And for those of you who read romance, awesome, love you, read more. For those of you who don't read romance, I hope that, you know, I will not be the last book that you will ever read. I hope that you will pick up another book, find another author, you know, and give it a shot, because there's so much, especially on the independent circuit. Romance is so different than with traditional mainstream publishers. So I hope you guys definitely follow my YouTube channel, because I host so many independent authors there that I think that you guys will probably find other works and other authors that you'll love. So thank you guys for hosting me today.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Angela. Love you.
Thank you.
Talk soon, of course.
Bye, ladies.
All right, thank you.
Bye. Thanks for having me.
Bye.